Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Jnatiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Arpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Shakita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vedyagravitam Tvameva Sarvam Mamadeva Tvameva Sarvam Mamadeva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So in our story, Ashtavakra has given Janaka the highest wisdom. He's of a very subtle mind. He gets it right away. He goes into samadhi for a muhurta, comes out, and he's talking about his experience of the truth. And so they've been going back and forth now in this dialogue. So anyone know where we are?
Chapter 2, verse 17.
Chapter 2, verse 17. Going on.
Bodhamatro aham jnana dukkhathi kalpito maya evam vimrashato nityam nirvikalpe sthitir mama. I am pure consciousness. Through ignorance, I have projected my equipments, such as the body, upon the self. Constantly reflecting thus, I abide in the self, purged of all mental activities.
Yes. So, what is it that we need to do? I like, again, the paradigm that's put forward in Yoga Vasishtha. The mind, samsara, my ignorance, the karma chakra, the wheel of action, all of it are reduced to three ideas. I think I'm a person, meaning largely I think I'm my body, jiva bhavana, the attitude or the feeling that I'm an individual. With that comes the belief that the world of name and form is separate from me, and the compulsion to struggle. Just like in the dream state, first I fall asleep to my identity as the waker. It's called deep sleep. Then the mind projects the dream, and it projects this triple factor here. I'm the dreamer in my dream body, and there's a world of name and form outside, and a world of thoughts and feelings inside, and I have to go from point A to point B. All of that is just projection. All of that is just imagination. Now, listen carefully. The shift between the waking state and the dream state is a gross shift in identity. The alarm goes off in the morning and whang, you wake up. Dream gone, negated. The shift between egoism and knowledge of myself as pure consciousness, nirvikalpa, without any perturbation or any movement, though profound, is subtle. So if for a moment you just put a little bit of concentration on the mind, notice the knower. See, all that's there is Chidakasha, the space of consciousness. If you get the sense of that, your ignorance for a moment is gone. But the most important part is, where did the individuality go? It's gone. It's like the individuality only exists when you don't look at it. That's why we have this wonderful term, ch3. Chaya means shadow or reflection. As soon as you shine the light of pure awareness by introverting your attention, go looking for the individual in a very quiet mind, he disappears. Just as much as the dreamer disappears. It's just not so gross. So it is a mysterious superimposition. Where does it take place? In the subtle intellect. In truth, yourself is never really obscured. When are you ever not you? Even when I think I'm all bound up in ignorance, do you exist? Oh, I exist. What's your existence? I'm a miserable person stuck in this body. Do you know that? I know. So your direct experience of the self is still there. It's just the silly mind. It gets so confused. And when knowledge dawns on the mind, this pratyabhignana, this recognition, this aha. Oh, there's nobody there. Notice Janaka doesn't say, I am an enlightened soul. I am a great Muni. I am the best of all Mahatmas of Twinford. It's not some exalted state of personness. What is it that the mind gets? It gets its own stupidity. It gets its own futility. It gets its own unreality. So what does Janaka say? I am pure consciousness. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Na me bandho asti moksho vapranti shanta nirashaya aho mayi sthitam vishwam vastuto na mayi sthitam. I have neither bondage nor freedom. The illusion, having lost its support, has ended. Oh, the universe, though it abides in me, does not in fact exist in me.
Yes. So, what is it that thinks it's bound? The stupid intellect. What is it that's striving for liberation? The stupid ego. The self is ever free. You may have seen me use this visual example before. So here's the self, here's the ego. I want to be realized. I want to be realized. I want to get it. I want to get it. And it thinks that there's going to be a moment, aha, I'm there now. That's not what happens. I want to be tapas, tapas, tapas. The mind quits throwing up doubt. Why? It sees its own unreality. Now, this pratyabhignana, this recognition, this aha, even that does not touch the self. When you have those moments when you see, oh, I am that witnessing consciousness, did that create yourself? Did you become the self? Did you evolve into the self? No, didn't touch it at all. But again, it's only the stupid mind that has all the problems. So as long as you are trying to be an enlightened person, you're going to be plagued by, am I there yet? Is this it? Maybe this is not yet. Are other people going to know? I realize now. The guru will never give you an enlightenment certificate. And once you get it, Krishna himself could say, no, you do not know. Say, thank you for your opinion, Lord. But I have no doubt. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sashariramiddham vishvam na kinchiditi nishritam shuddha chintan matra atma cha tatkaritman kalpanathuna. I have known for certain that the body and the universe are unsubstantial and that the self is pure consciousness alone. So now upon what can imagination stand?
So when you know the world, though seen, is not real, thoughts, though they appear, are not real. Again, we are not talking about some mind state of there's nothing wrong with the flow of thought or the perception of the world, as long as you know it for what it is. Again, the greatest example the scripture will use is mirage waters in the desert. How do I get rid of the water in the desert? You don't use a bucket. Once you know it's an optical illusion, it's heat waves off the sand, you just keep driving. It's next to the car. So also for the woman of knowledge, she functions in the world, but she's not perturbed because it's just a light show. It's just a hologram. Yeah. So there's the rope on the ground, and I superimpose a snake. I'm getting spiritual. I've superimposed a garter snake. But you superimposed a rattlesnake. That's like when we say, oh, I'm feeling so spiritual. My money situation is okay. My partner, my marriage is doing fine. And the weather is good. As opposed to, oh, bombs in Ukraine. Which is more real. Now again, we do not talk this way to the uninitiated. It does not bring them peace. It does not help them. This is advanced teaching for you. But the fundamental substratum of it all, the only thing that's being, which is the self itself, in truth is never touched by anyone. It's all okay. Any thoughts on this?
Sure.
Yes.
My question isn't directly, in some way related to what this chapter is about, but could you go over again how it's only, the self is only really perceived by the self. That is, it takes the mind, I guess has some notion of the self, but it,
I get your question. Let's see if I can help. So, we have direct experience, and then we have reflection on that experience. So, there are a couple examples I like to use. The latest one is bring your attention to the sensation of the waistband of your pants on your waist. Now, two things are going on. One is the direct experience, which is what your skin feels like. But then we did an additional thing with the mind. We reflected on it. Are your pants too tight, or are they too loose, or are they just right? You see?
Yeah.
Because, and with your mind, you can't put your pants on. The other one I like to do is if you rub your hands together. Direct experience. Now let's reflect on that. When you rubbed your hands together, was it motion or stasis? It was motion. Did it create warmth or coolness? My hands got warmer. Now, sitting on your hands with your mind, rub your hands together. No, wrong instrument. See? Now, the metaphor falls short because putting your pants on has a beginning and an end. Rubbing your hands together has a beginning and an end, and there's motion. But your self is always there. eyeing. But what we do with the subtle intellect is examine that direct experience and reflect on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the essential question of what's going on. So what you hear in the scriptures over and over again, as you as you hear the truth, as one hears it, mind gets quiet. And then with this radical reversal of the attentive factor, because we're used to paying attention to stuff, see if you can notice what is the nature of that direct experience of life. Is it tall? Is it short? Can't find an edge. Is it white? Is it black? Nope, no color. Is it left-handed or right-handed? Don't even have any hands. Is it pink? No. What is it? I can't find anything. Yet it shines as I. And the intellect flashes, oh, I get it. But it's in the subtle intellect that I've had the idea I am the body. If I don't inquire into the self because of spiritual ignorance, I come into this world convinced I'm this meat lump, or this meat lump plus a personality. I'm a terrible person. I yelled at my wife, you know. If you really inquire, if you really examine, well, that isn't true. It's body has its qualities, the mind has its qualities, the intellect has its qualities, good and bad. But none of it is really true about the self. Does that make it a little clearer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good questions. Anybody else on this? Now, in this verse, this bondage, this liberation, they occur in the phenomenal world. That's the hologram. Where does your deep understanding of the self go at night when you're asleep? If you think about it, do you realize that you have the body of a human being and not a giraffe? Isn't that clear? You don't doubt that. But if you're deeply engaged in work or listening to music, you don't have to have the thought, I have a human body, I have a human body, No, it doesn't change when you don't think about it. You see that? So in the beginning, we need a quiet mind, we need to be investigating because we have spiritual dysphoria. You're a mental health professional. What's dysphoria?
Where you don't recognize, like, where something seems other than you, or
It largely refers to people who are like anorexic.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you think you have a fat body and you don't.
Yeah.
You made it up. It's in your mind. You can't see what's there. That's our problem. We ignore because of the strange spiritual ignorance. And again, what's the antidote for ignorance? Knowledge. How do I get knowledge? Investigate. All right, next one.
Shariram swarganarako bandhamoksho bhayam tatha kalpana matra me vetat kim me karyam chidatmanaha. Body, the notions of heaven and hell, bondage and freedom, as also anxiety, all these are mere imaginations. What purpose have I with all these? I, whose nature is pure consciousness.
So here is the exclamation of the man of wisdom, but there's also practice implied. Even physics is now beginning to come to the same conclusion as Vedanta. The very act of cognizing things concretizes them, makes them material. You want to know how to have lots of problems? Start thinking about your problems. Reminds me, fellow who has a date with this gal. He met online. Hasn't even met her yet. Well, get together, we'll have dinner, it'll be really nice. Maybe we'll develop a long-term relationship, but then, oh, it'll probably just fall apart and she'll realize what a jerk I am, and then she'll go find another guy and she'll just leave me and I'll be all alone. So finally she comes to the door and he opens it up and says, "How could you?" Slam. That's what we do. Make it all up. So here, what the verse is implying, things will arise. Don't feed them. Let it go. If I start with an understanding, these thoughts are not real. My senses do not report reality. My senses report yesterday's thinking. Your senses are a gauge. You know, they don't have this in cars anymore. You get the check engine light, and that's it. But in the old-timey days, Mark may remember, you know, oil pressure gauge, RPMs on the engine. You had all these dials and gauges that would tell you what's going on with the motor. Remember that?
Temperature.
Yeah, temperature gauge. So these gauges would tell you what's going on with the engine. Our senses do not report reality. Our senses report yesterday's belief system. Want to know what you believe? Take a look at your life. That's all it is. Because that's all it's ever been. It's just the projection, the sankalpa of my mind. And the first step in getting some peace is don't get hooked. Don't believe it. Not easy, but it's simple. And if I get caught up in, well, this is really real, so how it will come real to you. Any thoughts on this? Swamiji used to talk about this. The way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. It's not about reframing thoughts. I was talking with a student last night about reframing. My life appears as it is because of my various narratives. I was abused as a child, or I'm an immigrant, or I am from this particular ethnic background. I had this trauma or that tragedy. That's our narrative. Go through life with these narratives. Someone says, "You're a terrible human being." And then the psychotherapist says, "Well, that was probably projection on their part. You're just fine. You're a good person. They're projecting." What have we done? We've created a different story which protects ego. Do you see that? Now, better you should refrain and have a healthy sense of ego than think you're a pile of poop. It's funny, I have one student, and he shared with me last week or so, growing up, his mother and father told him, "You're the best. You're the best." It's marvelous. He has wonderful self-confidence. Others of us didn't get that kind of messaging. But whatever the messages are, they are just mind states. And the mind will be completely reconditioned when it has the deep inside. I am a grounded being. It's birthless and changeless. All right, next one, going on.
Aho jana samuhe api na dvetam pashyato mama aranyamiva samritam paratim karavarnyaham. Oh, marvelous! I do not find any duality, even in the midst of human crowds. I feel like I am in a forest. Toward what, then, should I feel attachment?
So the man or woman of knowledge, there's no duality anywhere. Everything seen is only consciousness appearing as name. I like to say God does not create the world at us, to us, but as us and through us. So even though we're functioning in the world, we're just seeing mind, not even my mind or your mind. It's just mind. Chaitanya, the play of consciousness. It's just a movie. Let your own body, mind, intellect play its role in the movie. Monday, it's a comedy. Tuesday, it's an action film. Wednesday, it's a tragedy. Thursday, it's commercials. You just watch. Next one.
Naham deho na me deho jivo na hame ham hichit ayameva hime bandha asida asidya jivite spriha. I am not the body, nor have I a body. I am not a being, ego. I am pure consciousness. That I had desired to live, this indeed was my bondage.
So I have the desire to live as a human being. That's my bondage. My preservation of egoism, the preservation of body consciousness. Now, that's as old as time immemorial. We just look at the natural world and you see the survival instinct is incredibly strong. But this idea, I am not the body, nor do I have a body. Again, let's go to the dream state. Do you incarnate into a dream? Is the body of your dream something you possess? Something you simply witness? It feels like I'm in the dream, peeping out of the dream senses, with a dream ego identified. But I'm not in the dream is in me. And if I dream about a Chevy, which is more me? The dream body or the dream Chevy? Only difference is the locus of perception. What's the viewpoint from which I see the dream? The car doesn't see my dream body, I see the car. It's the only difference. But I am the witness of it all in truth. This body is no different than the dream body. This world that I inhabit is no different in substance than the dream. Next one.
Aho bhavana kallole vichitre tarka samuthitam mayan nat maham bodho chitvate samudyate. Oh, marvelous! In the limitless ocean of me, when mental storms rise, diverse waves of worlds are instantly produced.
So, in this vast ocean of consciousness, whole worlds rise and fall with the apparent storm of mind. Sometimes the sea is flat. Good day, I've had a good meditation. Sometimes 25-foot waves. None of it touches. And what happens to all the waves? Gone.
Back to, that this world, this planet, and this civilization and this species rise and fall back into consciousness. Human mind won't perceive it anymore, but I is going to remain I.
Consciousness remains, yes. I mean, look to your direct experience. Remember the 50s and the world of the 50s or the 60s. I was watching some videos of old-timey opera singers with their 1960s bouffant hairdos. But all those forms, the people, the cars, the politics, the issues, gone. Completely gone. Completely different movie today. And your 15-year-old body, gone. But if you really look, you have not changed ever. How do you know what's going to happen after you die, Jim? I know for sure as I do not know. I can tell you what the scriptures say. I can tell you what my intuition says. But I don't need to know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone when this body dies. But the worst that's going to happen is lights out. Nothing wrong with that. So my suggestion is, it's intellectually interesting to think about the end of the human race or when the sun supernovas and stuff like that. But what's real for you and me is today. How do I have peace today? Now, my mind projects in the future and I'm worried about the end of the world. Now, that doesn't mean at the level of transaction, Yavahara, not to do our best to bring a little peace into the world. It's funny how these things happen. All of a sudden, gas prices are going through the roof. More people will buy electric cars. And it might be a very good thing. But what do I know for sure? I don't know. I can only conjecture about the future. I don't know if that's useful. Next one.
Mayananta Mahamodho ch2 te prashamyati abhagya jiva varnijo jagatpoto vinashrava. With the calming of the storms of the mind in the limitless ocean of myself, unfortunately for the jiva, the trader, the ship of the universe gets wrecked and sunk.
So the ship of the universe gets wrecked and sunk, and unfortunately for the jiva, it's gone. Gone. So in time, the mind begins to lose its fear of not existing. This is one of the thoughts that keeps the mind from samadhi. I don't want to let go of my individuality. My God, I'll be the hole in the donut. But the more we get some glimpses of the infinitude of the ground being, we start to see dissolution, not fear. Any thoughts on this? It's beautiful poetry.
The dissolution is inevitable, obviously.
Well, the dissolution of the body, what the scriptures say is if you remain in ignorance, then the sense of individuality persists as the subtle body and takes birth in another physical body. But is that what really happens? Or is that just a story? Swamiji used to say reincarnation is the genealogy of the ghost and the ghost. What the Advaita funds. Don't be concerned about it. I mean, if you're not in any horrible physical pain right now, God knows the two of us, we've got our body afflictions. And if you sit still, there's nothing particularly wrong. Do you feel any different than you did when you were 20? Certainly it's a different body, different life, different people, different place that you live. The whole dream has changed. Now we're old men. Self is not changed. Next one.
Mayananta Maham Modha Vashrayam Jiva Vichayaha Padyanti Tanti Kelanti Pravishanti Swabhavataha. Wonderful, marvelous. In me, the limitless ocean, the waves of individual selves, according to their nature, rise, jostle about, play for a time, and disappear.
So we can think of consciousness as the ocean, and each of the various waves that come are what we would think of as individuals. They rise and they crash into each other. But again, it's just the play of the ocean. I think it was last week or the week before, there were like 25-foot waves at Mavericks down the coast, near where's Mavericks? Does anybody know? North of Monterey.
Yeah, Half Moon Bay.
Yeah. Then I was listening on the news that we have 3-foot swells at Ocean Beach. 3-foot swells. Those are nice people. 25-foot breakers. Trump. So funny. One of the things that's kind of interesting to do, if you go up Piedmont, the street in Oakland, to the end, you run into where the graveyards are. And if you drive up the graveyard, it's very beautiful. You get towards the crest of the hill, and that's where all the mausoleums are, where the rich people are buried. But then if you go over the hill to the other side, that's where the really old graves are. Some of them from the mid-1800s. Vast majority of them completely untended. Weeds growing, the tombstones are kind of at an angle and stuff like that. You see dates like 1863, stuff like that. People don't even remember who they are. So your life and my life, it's like you stick your finger in a bucket of water. Pull your finger out and guess what happens to the water? That's your life. A rare few may get a few pages in a book. But nobody personally cares anymore. So what do we do with this life? I was talking with a student yesterday. What's the point of doing anything? Not much. You will find that you're happier if you live a life of service. A life rooted in getting what I want is a life that's usually filled with misery. All you have to do is look to your experience. Are you getting what you want? How's that working out for you? My old friend Ram used to say, 95 cents worth of work. It's worth it. Be useful. Be useful. Do what you can to make the journey a little bit less painful for the next person. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
That's the end of the chapter.
Okay, next chapter.
Chapter 3.
This I think to Janaka's voice now.
Self.
No,
and-
I mean Ashtavakra's voice. Yeah.
Self in all in self. Ashtavakra vacha avinashinna matmanam mekam vigyaya tattvataha tavatmagyasya dhirasya kathamartharjane ratihi. Ashtavakra said, having known the self and its true nature as indestructible and one, how is it that you, a knower of the self and one poised in wisdom, feel passion for the accumulation of wealth?
So Ashtavakra is testing Janaka here. But in these questions, these testing questions, we see the doubts that arise. So it's not only the doubt when we look at the behavior of the woman or man of wisdom in our lives, but also for ourselves. Okay, I'm a knower of Brahman. Now what the hell do I do? So Ashtavakra is seeing Janaka. What's Janaka doing? He's a knower of the self. He's still running the kingdom. He's still wearing fancy clothes with lots of jewels. He's still fighting his wars. He's still acquiring money. How is it you're a knower of the self? You are acquiring wealth. Meaning, living in the world with what looks like being an ordinary, greedy person. Let's see what happens going on.
Atmagyanat taho priti vishva vishaya brahmagochare shuktirajnanato lokho yatha rajata vibhrame. Alas, just as, due to ignorance, a seashell is sought, mistaking it for silver, even so, due to the ignorance of the self, there is attachment to the illusory world of the senses.
So Shankara will thunder. If you think you're realized and your mind is extroverting into the world, give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that, there should be no talk of liberation. The mark of the person of wisdom is they cast that off. Perhaps my favorite verse from Gita. When a man casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then he's said to be a man of steady wisdom. Doesn't look like you're doing that, Janaka. So this is the doubt. I must not be realized. I think I want chocolate. I must not be realized. I want to go to the symphony. Going on.
Vishwam spurati yatredam taranga iva sagare soham soaham smiti vikyaye kim dina iva dhavasi. Having realized I am that from which the universe arises, like waves from the sea. Why do you run about like a wretched creature?
So, if you're a man of wisdom, why are you seen to be doing so much? Just like a wretched creature. Busy, 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 busy. What are you trying to get? There's nothing to get. Why are you doing all that stuff? Is freedom to be gained by sitting home and doing nothing? This is a doubt that many of us have. Going on.
Shrutapi shuddhachaitanya manam ati sundaram upasthe atyanta sansakto malinya madhigachati. Even after hearing that the self is pure consciousness, supremely beautiful, how can one yet be deeply entangled in sensuous objects and thus become impure?
Yes. So have you lost your mind in the negative sense, or have you lost your mind in the best sense? Whatever that's going on, you look like you're just a desirer of desires. Isn't that going to create vasana? Aren't you going to be a fallen yogi? Don't you have to guard yourself against the trap of sensuous enjoyment? At one level, yes, we do. But we're going to see in Janaka's answer, for the woman or man of wisdom, we're out of control. Let's do one or two more. So I don't want to end this, leave you in suspense. Please don't. We'll do it. We'll deal with it next week. Go ahead.
Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani munirjanat ashrayam mamta manurvartate. This is amazing that the sense of ownership, mindness, should still continue in the wise men who have realized the self in all beings and all beings in the self.
So Janaka probably said, don't sit on my throne, it's mine. You got to sit on that lower cushion. There can be a sense of ownership. Now, one of the things that I want to invite you to do not be concerned about other people's mind states. I don't think anyone here is afflicted by that, but there are people in our Sangha, our little Kula, who are comparing themselves to other students. Is so-and-so really there, or are they a hypocrite? Only do our own. How do I know when my sadhana is finished? When there are no more doubts. When the mind is she cool. All right, one more and then we'll quit.
Astitha paramadvaitam moksharte api vyavastitah ashcharyam kama vashago vikala polishikshayah. It is strange indeed that one abiding in the transcendent non-duality and set for the goal of liberation should yet come under the sway of lust and distraught by his sexual habits.
So, Ashtavakra comes around the corner and there's the king doing the mufti pufti with one of his wives. God knows he had a whole bunch of them. Old and decrepit, and still, the mind is willing, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. How can you come under the sway of lust? These are very interesting questions. Of course, the question that's really underneath it all is, I feel sexual desire. Does that mean I'm not realized yet? And we always look to our own. So we're going to have to leave it with all these questions. Next week, Janaka responds. We get really important. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jen.
So we have to ponder those questions all week, huh?
Read ahead.